Okay, hello everyone. Let me check if the stream is coming up in YouTube or not. Okay, let me check that. After that, I will. Okay, the stream has come up in YouTube. Okay, the stream has come up in YouTube. Now let's move on to today's class. Now in today's class, we will look in the top. We will look at the topic called as emergency. We will look at the concept called as emergency. So we will have an in-depth look on three different types of emergencies, that is national emergency, president's rule, as well as financial emergency. Now before going on to today's videos itself, let me give you a brief introduction about myself as well as about Unacademy. See, my name is Aravind. I have completed my BE Mechanical Engineering in 2014, and I have almost 3 years of experience in teaching UPSC Civil Services, and I have experienced all stages of UPSC Civil Services, that is prelims, mains, and then interview. Now my specialty subjects include polity, international relations, and then current affairs. Now if you wish to know about my class schedule, or if you want to ask doubts regarding my classes, you can join this group called as Unacademy_Aravind, so that you can have an overview on when my classes will be conducted, all these things. Okay. Now, what will you get by subscribing to Unacademy? See, by subscribing to Unacademy, you will get access to daily live classes. Okay. See, now in these daily live classes, you can watch them, you can rewatch these daily live classes, and importantly, then and there itself, if you have any doubts, you can ask those doubts. Okay. And Unacademy will conduct almost on a daily basis live tests as well as quizzes, so that students can test themselves of their pedigree. And all courses in Unacademy are structured courses, that the learning process for the students become much easier. And then students will have unlimited access to videos concerned with an examination that they are subscribing for. So if you are subscribing for UPSC examination, you will get free access to all videos concerned with UPSC examination. Now see here, Unacademy as a platform provides this platform where some of the most top educators like Murnal Patel, Aman Sharma, Mudit Gupta, all these people, they get to share their knowledge with students who hail from all over India. Okay, doesn't matter where you are coming from, whether from an urban area or rural area, as long as you have internet connection, these top educators, they get to share their knowledge with students who come from all over India. And importantly, Unacademy covers syllabus in a very comprehensive manner. Okay, so each and nook and corner of UPSC syllabus will be covered by Unacademy, and not only that, the same syllabus will be covered by multiple teachers, so that you can choose between different teachers if you are not satisfied with one teacher. Okay. Now, I suggest you download our Unacademy learning app, so that you can better keep track of your learning goals, how much time you're spending in Unacademy, how much time you're spending for studying UPSC. All these things you can keep track if you are downloading Unacademy learning app. Not only that, if your favorite teacher is taking a class in Unacademy app, you will get instant notifications in your mobile phone as soon as your teacher is taking the class. Now, these are the amount charged by Unacademy for subscription in plus subscription. Okay, so this is very less compared to offline institutions. In offline institution, you will be paying upwards of 4 to 5 lakh rupees. Okay, so now this includes fees, rent, food, all these expenses. But in Unacademy, not only are you spending very less, but this amount of money, okay, this not only spending very less, you will learn from the comfort of your home itself. Now, if you're using my code Aravind V, okay, you will get 10% as offer in all Unacademy purchases. So instead of paying 44,000 rupees for 1 year course, you'll be paying only 39,600 rupees for Unacademy subscription if you're using my code Aravind V. Okay, I suggest going for either go for 1 year subscription or 2 year subscription. Okay. Now, excuse me. Now, see, Unacademy has recently introduced a new type of platform called as Iconic Platform. Now, under this Iconic Platform, Unacademy will provide you with a personal coach. Now, this personal coach is some of the most experienced faculty in UPSC platform, and based on their experience, they know where students will make mistakes and how to guide students. So, based on their experience, they will guide you through the process of UPSC preparation for students. Okay, so the amount is little bit higher compared to plus platform. Okay, even here, if you're using my code Aravind V, you will get 10% as offer. Okay, so that's it with regards to introduction as well as promotion, everyone. So let's move on to the next the topic. Okay, now let's move on to the video for today. The topic for today. Now the topic that we are going to discuss today is emergency provisions. Emergency provisions. Now listen here. Now these emergency provisions are given in Part 18 of Indian Constitution. These emergency provisions are given in Part 18 of Indian Constitution. Okay, and article numbers are from Article 352 to Article 360. Okay, so the articles that cover these emergency provisions are from Article 352 to Article 360. Okay, now give me a moment here. Okay, everyone, see here. Now, what is this emergency provision? When will these emergency provisions be activated? See here, these emergency provisions are activated. They are activated only if there is a threat to the security of the country. Only if there is a threat to the security of the country. Okay, only if there is a threat to the security of the country, then only these emergency provisions will be activated. Now, what are these emergency provisions? What happens during this emergency? Whenever people talk about emergency, they will say that president will proclaim national emergency, constitutional emergency. But what happens fundamental during emergency? See, emergency is nothing but an administration. So see here, in polity we have discussed central government, we have discussed state government, we have discussed union territory, all these different types of governments we have discussed in our polity class. See, similar to different types of governments, emergency is also a one type of government. Okay, emergency is also a one type of administration. Okay, so in our constitution, we have clearly defined how central government has to be administered, state government has to be administered, and how union territories have to be administered. All these things are clearly defined in the constitution. Similarly, during emergency, okay, our country goes into an entirely new sorts of administration called as emergency administration. Okay, so what happens now? Here, now I will give you, I will simplify it. See here, during ordinary circumstances, the country will have a concept called as division of power. Country will subscribe to a concept called as division of power. This is nothing but country will have federal provisions. Okay, so this division of power will give power to central government as well as state government. This division of power will give power both to central government as well as state government. Now, during emergency, okay, now during this threat to national security, during the threat to security of the country, what happens is that this division of power, this federal setup will get changed to unitary setup. Okay, this federal setup will be changed to unitary setup. Okay, so the rather than dividing powers between central government and state government, country will become a unified setup. Okay, now who will change this? Who is authority who will change this setup from federal setup to unitary setup? The authority is President of India. The authority who can change this setup of government of India is President of India. Okay, now importantly, see here, whenever we want to change any provision in the constitution, okay, whenever we want to change any provision in the constitution, we have to change these provisions using only Article 368 or outside of Article 368 by passing either Constitution Amendment Bill or by passing ordinary bill. Okay, so that's how you can change the Constitution. Now, federal provisions, if Parliament wants to change federal provisions, these federal provisions has to be ratified by special majority in the Parliament, and it also has to be ratified by half the number of states. But during emergency circumstances, president, he will be able to change the setup of our federal setup even without amending the constitution, even without amending the constitution. Okay, so this is what happens in emergency. See here, emergency is nothing but a type of administration. Okay, so during emergency situation, like for example, threat to security of the country, during this emergency situation, what happens is that our country's federal setup will get changed to unitary administration. And who will change this administrative process? President of India. Even without formally amending the constitution, he will change the setup of a country. Okay, now, so emergency can be defined as, see here, emergency is a pattern of administration Okay, it's a pattern of administration when there is a security threat to the country. Okay, whenever there is a security threat to the country, doesn't matter it's a financial threat or it is a constitutional threat, doesn't matter whatever threat, whenever there is a threat, okay, emergency pattern of administration will be imposed in India. Okay, now now we have talked about if there is a security threat, this emergency pattern of administration will be imposed in Government of India. Okay, so now we have to discuss what are the different types of threats envisaged by Constitution of India. So if this security threat is left undefined, what will happen? Central government, whenever there is a small skirmish in individual state, they will immediately impose emergency. So they will immediately take away federal provisions. Okay, right? So that's why these threats have to be defined by the Constitution. What constitutes as threat to the country? Okay. Now Constitution envisages three types of threats. Okay, Constitution envisages three threats are envisaged in the Constitution. Three types of threats are envisaged in the Constitution. Now, what are these three threats? See, the first type of threat is, wait here. See, the first threat is threat of security to entire country or any part of it. Okay, threat of security to entire country or any part of it. Now the next type of constitutional threat is threat to constitutional machinery at state. Okay, so the next type of threat is threat of constitutional machinery at state. So the third type of threat is threat to financial stability of entire country or any part of it. Threat to financial stability of entire country or any part of it. So these are the three types of threats envisaged in the Constitution. Now I will repeat again. See here, emergency is nothing but a new type of administration which will be proclaimed by President of India if there is a threat to security of the country. Now, during this situation, the federal setup of our country will be changed to a unitary setup. Okay. Now, the threats is defined in the constitution. Now, there are three types of threats that have been envisaged in our constitution. Now, these three types of threats include threat to security to entire country or any part of it, threat to constitutional machinery at state, and the next one is threat to financial stability of entire country or any part of country. Okay. Now, these threat, the first threat is defined in Article 352. Okay, the first threat is defined in Article 352. The next threat it is given in Article 356. The last threat it is given in Article 360. Okay, so the first threat will be proclaimed by using Article 352. The next threat it will be proclaimed using Article 356. The third threat it will be proclaimed using Article 360. Now I will give you what is the term that is used in our constitution for each of these threats. Okay. Now for Article 352 in our constitution we call this emergency as proclamation of emergency. We call this emergency as proclamation of emergency. So whenever you come across this term proclamation of emergency in prelims questions, students will get confused whether it is national emergency or state emergency. Okay, whenever this term proclamation of emergency is mentioned in your prelims or mains answer by mains question, you immediately assume that, not just assume, it is a national emergency. Okay, it is emergency under Article 352. Not many students are aware of this. Now this this Article 360, the official name given in our constitution is called as financial emergency. But for emergency imposed under Article 356, there is no title given in the constitution. There is no title given in the constitution. Okay, there is no title which is given in the constitution, but for our colloquial sense, we will call this emergency under Article 352 as national emergency. We will call this emergency under Article 352 as national emergency. We will call this emergency under Article 356 as constitutional emergency or president's rule. Now Suraj, hi Suraj, or state emergency, or okay. Now financial emergency, even colloquially we will call it as financial emergency. Okay, so that's how our we will use these terms both from constitution as well as for our own colloquial sense. Okay, so according to constitution, the emergency proclaimed under Article 352 it will be called as proclamation of emergency. Article 360 it will be called as financial emergency. But for Article 356 there is no title given in the constitution. Okay, now for our own benefit we will call this emergency under Article 352 as national emergency, for Article 356 as constitutional emergency or president's rule or state emergency. Now for Article 360 it is called as financial emergency. Now in this class we will discuss all these three emergencies. Okay, now we will study all these three emergencies in a set pattern. Okay, we will study all these three emergencies in a set pattern. Now what is a pattern based on which we will study this three emergencies? Okay, now the pattern is, here you have to remember this pattern. Okay, then only you can easily understand my class. Okay, for the first thing that we have to discuss is how the emergency is imposed. After discussing that, we will discuss the impact of emergency. We will discuss the impact of this emergency. So in how this emergency is imposed, we will discuss various things like, whenever we talk about emergency, first we have to discuss who is the authority who imposes this emergency. We have to discuss who is the authority who can impose this emergency. Sorry, not first. We will not discuss who first. We will discuss when. So, what are the circumstances during which this emergency is imposed? After discussing the circumstances, we will discuss who will impose these emergencies, and then we will discuss. Okay, so as you all know, we have discussed earlier, president is the authority who can impose this emergency. So this power is given to executive. Okay, so see here, we are changing the entire administration. We are changing the entire administration from unitary to, sorry, federal to unitary. Okay, so can we give this much amount of power to executive alone? Can you understand? We are changing the entire administration from federal setup to unitary setup. So is it advisable to give this entire power to executive? President, he will take decisions by means of executive say and advise, right? So can we give this power to entirely to president? We cannot give, right? So we have to introduce some safeguards. Now those safeguards are given in the form of parliament ratification. These safeguards are given in the form of parliament ratification. Now once this proclamation has been ratified by parliament, what happens is this emergency will be imposed. Once parliament has ratified this emergency will be put in place. Now after this emergency is put in place, we have to discuss what is the life of this emergency. We have to discuss what is the life of this emergency. Now in this life of this emergency, we should also discuss what is the impact of this emergency in Indian polity. Okay, we have to discuss what is the impact of this emergency on Indian polity, and lastly we will discuss how this emergency is revoked. So we will discuss revocation of these emergencies. Is it clear, everyone? This is the set pattern. Now this pattern we will follow for all these three emergencies. The first one is when, at what circumstances these emergencies will be imposed, and who will impose this emergency, and what is the procedure for parliamentary ratification of this emergency, and also we will discuss what is the life of this emergency, and lastly we will discuss how this emergency is revoked by authorities. Okay, and also we will discuss what is the impact of this emergency during the life of this emergency. Okay, everyone, now give me a moment here. Okay, so now using this pattern, okay, first we will discuss article 252. Okay, we will discuss article we will discuss article 352. So article 352 in bracket, proclamation of emergency. Proclamation of article. See here, we have to discuss when, right? See here, the first pattern that we have to discuss is when this emergency is imposed. Okay, see here, when there is a security of entire country or any part of it, when there is security to entire country or any part of it. Okay, Now, during this situation, if president is satisfied, if president is satisfied that there is a grave situation, now what is this grave situation? That is threat of security to entire country or any part of it. Okay, now if president is satisfied that there is a grave situation, okay, now president can impose national emergency on three instances, on three grounds. Now what are those grounds? He can impose national emergency on three grounds. The one is during war, next one is during external aggression, the next one is during armed rebellion. Okay, so I've armed rebellion, I have put star. Now what is the meaning of what is the reason why I am putting star? Because it indicates that this definition was changed by constitutional amendment. So we will discuss what is change regarding this definition in later period. Okay, so the grounds, there are three grounds based on which external emergency can, national emergency can be imposed. Those three grounds include war, external aggression and armed rebellion. Okay, now tell me, can anyone tell me what is the difference between war and external aggression? What is the difference between war and external aggression? Can anyone tell me in the live chat session? Can anyone tell me what is the difference between war and external aggression? See here, in case of war, there is a formal proclamation. There is a formal proclamation of war. Okay, so president, who is authority, who can declare war? Okay, president, he will sign this document. Okay, he will have a document. In this document, he will proclaim war against this particular country, and after this proclamation of war, he will list down what are the rules as well as procedures that will be followed by India during this war period, and he will send this declaration of war to another country. Is it clear? So war, it's a formal proclamation of war. It is a formal thing. But in case of external aggression, it's an informal attack. So for example, if Pakistan, if they want to attack a port in Gujarat, do you think they will send a proclamation saying that I'm going to attack this Gujarat port in this time, in this date? Do you think in New Year at midnight I'm going to attack this Kandala port? Do you think they will do that? So in external aggression, it's an informal attack. For example, Pathankot attack, Uri attacks, all these are informal attacks. Mumbai attacks, all these are informal attacks which are done even without the proclamation of war. Even Kargil war, it was waged by means of external aggression. It was done informally. There was no formal declaration of war between India and Pakistan. So that's the difference between war and external aggression. In case of war, there will be a formal proclamation given by, this formal proclamation will be given by President of India. Now in case of external aggression, it will be an informal attack. Now these two things, okay, now for our purposes, we will call these two, emergency imposed on these two grounds are as called as external emergency. We will call these two instances based on which emergency can be imposed as external emergency. Now emergency imposed based on armed rebellion, we will call it as internal emergency. Now see here, the term external as well as internal emergency, it is not mentioned in the constitution. For our own understanding, we will use these terms external as well as internal emergency. Okay, so these two, the first and second ground, they will be called as external emergency, and a third ground, armed rebellion, it will be termed as internal emergency. Okay everyone, so we have discussed when. Now we have discussed the when part. So this is the pattern that we are going to discuss. As I mentioned before, the first part is when this emergency imposed. So we have studied this when part. Now we have to discuss who will impose this national emergency. We have to discuss who will impose this national emergency. Now, president is the authority who can impose Article 352 by proclamation of emergency. Now, do you think president? Do you think it's a discretionary power of a president? President on his own can? Do you think he can impose this emergency? No, president. Okay, in most of the instances, president has to act on the aid and advice given by Council of Ministers. But only in case of emergency, president has to impose emergency only on the written recommendation of cabinet. Okay, only on the written recommendation of cabinet, president will impose Article 352. Okay, so this is the only instance where the word cabinet was used in the constitution. This provision, right, this safeguard was introduced in 44th Constitution Amendment Act. This safeguard was imposed during Constitution Amendment Act. Okay, now before Constitution Amendment Act, president can impose national emergency just by aid and advice of Prime Minister plus Council of Ministers. But after 44th Constitution Amendment Act, only on the written recommendation given by cabinet, president can impose national emergency. See, I'll tell you the reason why. See here, during 1975, there was a there was a lot of movements called as Janata movement. There was a lot of movement against Indira Gandhi government called as Janata movement. Okay, now Janata movement was organized by a number of Jayaprakash Narayanan. He was a Gandhian leader. Okay, he followed principles of Gandhiji, and he waged number of movements against centralization of Indira Gandhi's government, and it was a very non-violent movement. Now, what Indira Gandhiji did was that at midnight, she sent a recommendations to president. She sent a recommendation to president on imposing national emergency. Okay, so what does Article 78 say? What does Article 78 say? Article 78 say president has to take decisions on the aid and advice given by Prime Minister plus Council of Ministers, and this aid and advice given, who is authority who can give this aid and advice to president? This advice is given by president. Okay, this advice is given by president. So whenever there is a decision that is to be sent to president, what will happen is that from Prime Minister's office, a decision, okay, a letter will go to president saying that you have to follow this instruction, you have to implement these decisions. So that's what happens in aid and advice. Okay, a document, a letter will go from Prime Minister's office to President's office. Is it clear? Now, president, what will he think? Whenever he receives a letter from Prime Minister, what will he think? He will think that this letter was taken in the concurrence of all the Council of Ministers. But Prime Minister, even without consulting his Council of Ministers, can arrive at this decision. Is it clear? Even before consulting the Council of Ministers, Prime Minister can take any decision. So, whenever president receives this directive from aid and advice from Prime Minister's office, what will president think? President will think that this decision was taken by the entire Council of Ministers, and he will implement this provision. So that's what happened during 1975. During 1975, Indira Gandhi, without consulting any of her cabinet ministers or Council of Ministers, she has taken this decision unilaterally, and at the stroke of midnight, she has imposed national emergency. Okay. Now, when in the morning, when ministers opened their newspapers, only via newspaper they came to know that national emergency was imposed. Okay, so that's why this safeguard was introduced. So only on the written recommendation given by cabinet, only then president can impose national emergency. So in case of this written recommendation, not only Prime Minister has to sign, this recommendation has to be signed by all the cabinet ministers. See, in case of this aid and advice, it has to be only signed by, it should be signed only by Prime Minister. But in case of written recommendation from Cabinet, it has to be signed by all Cabinet Ministers. Okay, it has to be signed by all Cabinet Ministers. Now, in this case, the document will be sent by Principal Secretary to President. Okay, the document will be sent from Prime Minister's office. That is, it will be sent by Principal Secretary. Principal Secretary is the one who is heading the Prime Minister's office. But in case of written recommendation from Cabinet, this recommendation will go from Cabinet Secretary. Cabinet Secretary, after obtaining all the signatures from Cabinet Ministers, he will send these recommendations to President. So this is very, very important. Okay, this is very, very important. Only in this instance in Constitution, President will take decision based on written recommendation by Cabinet. In almost all circumstances, just by aid and advice of Prime Minister and Council of Ministers, he will make decisions. Only in this instance, he will make decisions based on written recommendation of Cabinet. Okay, and this is the only instance. This is the only instance where the word Cabinet is being mentioned in the Constitution. So we can we call Cabinet as a constitutional body? Constitutional body. Why can we call this Cabinet as a constitutional body? Because the word Cabinet is mentioned in Article 352. Okay, so whenever a body is mentioned in Constitution itself, okay, it will be called as constitutional body. So that's what. So this is the procedure to impose national emergency. This is the procedure to impose national emergency. Now you have to keep in mind. See here, you have to keep in mind that this emergency can be imposed to entire country. It can be imposed to entire country or any part of it. Okay, this emergency can be imposed to entire country or any part of the country. And the next important provision is that, okay, see here what happens in President's proclamation. President, okay, if President is satisfied of a grave threat, if a President is satisfied of grave threat, in that situation, President can impose national emergency. Okay, so President's satisfaction is only important. So President's satisfaction is important. So since President's satisfaction is only required even before the actual occurrence of the event, national emergency can be imposed. Even before the actual occurrence of the event, national emergency can be imposed. Now I will give you an example why this provision is there in our Constitution. See here, before, if Pakistan, they are planning to attack India. Okay, in 1 week time. See here, if Pakistan is planning any type of attack on India, attack on India, India will receive this information. Beforehand itself. India will receive this information via intelligence agency. Okay, do you think once India receive this information that Pakistan is going to attack Rajasthan border in 3 days time, do you think India will wait till Pakistan attacks Rajasthan and then they will impose national emergency? Do you think they will focus their energy on proclamation of national emergency or fighting the actual war? Can you understand my point? Any attack, okay, see that's what happens in intelligence agencies. Any type of attack, be it even small attacks, that information will come to India. Okay, our intelligence agencies are well equipped enough to provide that information from Pakistan. But the problem is that how we are processing that information. See here, I will give you two examples. See here, everyone knows that. See, if this is India, okay, this is Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, this is Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, now this is Pakistan occupied Kashmir. This is Aksai Chin. Okay, this is Pakistan occupied Kashmir. This is Aksai Chin area. Now there is a significant area. Now this is India. This is India. Okay, this is Jammu and Kashmir occupied by India, which is under the formal. What is it? It is under the formal process of Indian country. Okay, now there is a area which connects all these three countries called as Siachen Glacier. Siachen Glacier. Siachen Glacier. Now, right until 1980s, no country was brave enough to occupy this Siachen Glacier. No country was brave enough to occupy this Siachen Glacier because it is a very inhospitable terrain. Even now, our Indian Army is being stationed in Siachen Glacier, but lot of people, lot of army personnel are dying each year because of inhospitable conditions in Siachen Glacier. So that's why right until 1980s, the Siachen Glacier was unoccupied. But in 1980s, India received intelligence from UK. India received intelligence from UK raw officials. Okay, raw officials saying that. Give me a moment here. Now, India received information from UK raw officials saying that Pakistan ordered some 2.5 lakh ice boots. Now, this order was placed at very urgently, and they requested this placement of ice boots within 1 month or so, within 1 month or 2 months. Now, India, this information was communicated to cabinet. This information was communicated to cabinet. Now, cabinet analyzed this information. Now, they thought that now during this time there was a dire financial. Okay, there was a financial instability that was going on in Pakistan. There was a huge amount of financial instability that was going on in Pakistan, and it was also summer at the time. It was also summer at the time, so there was no need for Pakistan to order this 2.5 lakh ice boots from UK. So they thought that they processed this information and they thought that Pakistan is going to occupy Siachen Glacier. See, Siachen Glacier is a very strategically very important part in Jammu and Kashmir, because if you are occupying this land, what will happen? You can immediately attack. Okay, you have a vantage point in attack over Aksai Chin as well as Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So if Pakistan is occupying Siachen Glacier, it will be very difficult for India to defend Jammu and Kashmir. If Pakistan is occupying Siachen Glacier, it is very difficult for India to defend Jammu and Kashmir, because China as well as Pakistan will have direct access to each other. Because of that, not only that, both China as well as Pakistan, they can occupy the Siachen Glacier, and they will have a very good vantage point, and from that place they will attack Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so it is a very strategically very important part in Jammu and Kashmir. So they conducted an operation called as Operation Meghdoot. Now, by this Operation Meghdoot, Indian Army went to Siachen Glacier, and they till now they are occupying this territory of Siachen Glacier. So that's how, in this instance, India processed this information. Okay. Now, in case of Uri attacks as well as Patalkot strikes, okay, Patalkot attacks, what happened? India received this information. India had information already with them that Pakistan is going to attack these places. Okay, Patalkot strike as well as Uri attacks. India had this information, but India did not act on this information. India did not process this information correctly. Okay, so that's what that is the most important part in intelligence gathering. Intelligence will be gathered, but how we process this intelligence is the most important part. So that's why you should have the right government machinery to process this information faster, as well as to communicate this information faster to the higher authorities. Okay, so if ordinarily our government bureaucracy is very rigid. Okay, our government bureaucracy is very rigid. So communication of information from one hierarchy to another hierarchy, it has to go through various layers. Okay, so if an SI is collecting this information, and this information is very sensible information, and this insensible information should be immediately communicated to higher authorities like cabinet secretary or defense secretary. It has to be immediately communicated. But if this SI, okay, if this low level SI is, if he is breaching hierarchy and going to defense secretary and communicating this information, what will happen? This SI, he will face a lot of trouble from his higher authorities. And even if this SI is following his hierarchy and communicating it to superiors, do you think they will take this information seriously? Obviously, this is how our government machinery operates. Clear? As soon as they receive information, they will be very lax. Information will come, that's not a problem. Even in Mumbai attacks, they received information, but they failed to act on this information. They did not process this information correctly because of this archaic government hierarchy. Okay. So that's why even before the actual occurrence of the event, okay, national emergency can be imposed in India. Okay, even before the actual occurrence of the event, the national emergency can be imposed. Okay. That's it, everyone. So now once president has proclaimed, okay, now president has issued this proclamation of national emergency. Okay, president has issued this proclamation of national emergency. Now one important point that I have failed to communicate. See here, this proclamation of national emergency, it is subject to judicial review. It is subject to judicial review. It is subject to judicial review. It is very, very important. Okay, this proclamation of national emergency by President of India, it is subject to judicial review. It is very, very important. Now once president has imposed this proclamation of national emergency, as I mentioned before, this is a very huge power that is given to the executive. This is a huge power given to the executive. Since it is a very huge power, they are amending they are changing the entire structure of the constitution even without the formal approval, right? So that's why this proclamation of national emergency has to be ratified by parliament. It has to be ratified by parliament. So that's what we will look here. Procedure for ratification. Procedure for parliament ratification. Now, what is the difference between ratification? What happens in ratification? And I'll explain this ratification process. See here, what is the difference? In parliament, okay, in parliament there are two types of passing motions here. One is by means of passage. Okay, one means of passage. Another one is ratification. One is ratification. So these are two types of approval given by the parliament. So what is the difference between passage, approval, and ratification? Okay, there are two types of approvals given by parliament. Okay, there are two types of approval given by parliament. Now what is the difference between passage and ratification? See here, I will explain this process here. What happens if India wants to amend federal provisions? Constitution amendment bill has to be introduced. Constitution amendment bill has to be introduced in either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. Okay, in Lok Sabha it will go through first reading, second reading. Sorry, in first house it will go through first reading, second reading, and third reading. After that, it will go through. It has to be passed by special majority. After that, it will go to second house. In second house, even here it has to be passed by means of going through first reading, second reading, and third reading. In third house also, it has to be approved by special majority. Okay. Now this entire process is called as passage. This entire process is called as passage. Now after passage, this constitution amendment bill will be sent for ratification of half the states. Ratification of half the states. Now what is the difference between passage and ratification? See, in case of passage, they can amend the original text. They can amend the text of the bill. But in case of ratification, they cannot amend. They cannot amend the text of this particular bill. Is it clear? So that's what happens in amending the federal provisions. It will be passed by parliament. In case of passage, the text will be amended by the parliament. It will be allowed to amend by amendment of the parliament, but in case of ratification, this text will not be allowed to amend. So that's what happens in ratification. Okay, so that's what happens in ratification. Parliament cannot amend this proclamation of national emergency. So as soon as President proclaims this national emergency, this national proclamation of national emergency, okay, this is a document. Okay, this national proclamation of national emergency, it will be submitted to Parliament. Okay, it will be submitted to both Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha separately. Okay, this will be submitted. This will be submitted in Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. This will be submitted in Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. Now, in case of approval of national emergency, the powers of Lok Sabha is equivalent to that of Rajya Sabha. Okay, both these houses has to give their approval. Now, both these houses has to ratify. They have to ratify. Okay. Now, what is the period within which they have to ratify? They have to ratify within 1 month, and also the majority required for ratification is special majority. Okay, the majority required for ratification is special majority, that is 2/3 of members present and voting, 2/3 of members present and voting, plus half the members voting for it, half the members voting for it. Okay, see here, as I mentioned in my previous classes, constitution will never use the word a special majority nowhere in the constitution. So you try to use this actual majority wherever possible. Okay, so this is a majority required to ratify this proclamation. Now, after ratification of both these houses, national emergency will be imposed. National emergency will be approved by Parliament, will be approved by the legislature. National emergency will have been approved by the legislature, but in some situations, okay, in some situations Lok Sabha is dissolved. In some situations Lok Sabha is dissolved. Okay, now during this instance, when Lok Sabha was dissolved, during this instance, President has imposed Article 252. During this instance, President has imposed President has imposed Article 352. Okay, now what happens during this instance? Okay, when Lok Sabha is dissolved or after the imposition of national emergency by the President, Lok Sabha has been dissolved. Now, in this instance, what happens is that Rajya Sabha within 1 month, okay, using special majority, they have to ratify this proclamation of national emergency. Is it clear? If Lok Sabha is dissolved, they have Rajya Sabha has to ratify this national emergency within 1 month by means of special majority. Okay, now as soon as Rajya Sabha ratifies it, okay, this will continue for some period. Right until Lok Sabha has been reconstituted. Okay, Lok Sabha has reconstituted. This will continue right until Lok Sabha has been reconstituted. Now, this reconstituted Lok Sabha has to pass this bill, has to ratify this bill, not pass this bill. They have to ratify this bill by means of special majority within 30 days. Is it clear, everyone? So this is the procedure for ratification. See here, once President has proclaimed this national emergency, this is a document. Okay, this is a document for proclamation of national emergency. Once President has done that, this proclamation, it will be submitted to both the houses of the parliament, both Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha, and both these houses, they individually has to ratify this. They have to give their approval to this proclamation by means of special majority. Once they have both these houses has been ratified, national emergency will be approved by legislature. But in certain circumstances, okay, in certain circumstances, Lok Sabha was dissolved during the imposition of national emergency, or after the imposition of national emergency, Lok Sabha has been dissolved within 1 month. Now, during that instance, Rajya Sabha within 1 month using special majority has to ratify this proclamation. Now, once Rajya Sabha has ratified this proclamation, it will continue for some time until Lok Sabha has reconstituted. Now, from the date Lok Sabha has been newly reconstituted, Lok Sabha has to ratify this proclamation by special majority within 30 days. Okay. So the condition is that both the houses should necessarily ratify it. Should necessarily ratify it. Now, keep in mind, now why are we not discussing Rajya Sabha is not, when Rajya Sabha is dissolved? We have discussed Lok Sabha is dissolved, right? Similarly, we can also discuss Rajya Sabha is also dissolved, right? Why are we not discussing that? Because Lok Sabha is a temporary body. The tenure of Lok Sabha is 5 years, but Rajya Sabha is a permanent body. Rajya Sabha cannot be dissolved. So that's why in case of dissolution, we are talking only about Lok Sabha, not about Rajya Sabha. This can be a doubt which can students can have. Okay, so give me a moment here. I will drink some water. So if you have any doubt so far, please ask in the chat section. I will try to answer those. If you have any doubt so far, I will give you 1 to 2 minutes to ask your doubts. After that, I will move on to the next part. But that is life of this national emergency. Okay. So yes, so far we have discussed all these things, how when this national emergency is imposed and who imposes this national emergency, all these things. Now we have to discuss life of national emergency. Life of national emergency. Okay, see here, once the moment this proclamation is ratified by the second house, the moment it is ratified by the second house, okay. See, the moment president has the moment the president has issued this proclamation of national emergency, it will be valid for 1 month. This national emergency, it will be valid for 1 month. Within this 1 month, both the houses of the parliament should ratify this proclamation. Okay, so the moment this proclamation is ratified by second house, the moment this proclamation is ratified by the second house, the national emergency will continue for 6 months. The national emergency will continue for 6 months. Okay, the national emergency will continue for 6 months. But do you think 6 months is enough? Okay, if there is a war, if there is a war that India is fighting, do you think this war will last for only for 6 months? Take a look at World War II. World War II lasted for almost 6 years. So there is no guarantee that India will come out of this war within 6 months, right? So that's why the life of national emergency can be extended by another 6 months. The life of national emergency can be extended by another 6 months by means of another ratification of parliament, by means of special majority, okay. So for once every 6 months it has to be ratified, okay. Once every 6 months it has to be ratified by the parliament, and by ratification of parliament it can be extended for n number of times. It can be extended for n number of times for infinity, for infinite times. Okay, it can be extended for n number of times for infinity. So there is no time limit placed on placed by the constitution for imposition of national emergency. Is it clear? There is no time limit placed by the constitution on imposition of national emergency. It can be imposed for infinite amount of time. Why? Because war can take place only for 1 year, or it can take place for 10 years or 20 years. No one knows what will happen during war, how much time it will take to fight this war. So that's why constitution has a provision saying that an emergency can be extended for infinite amount of time. Okay, so that's why there is no maximum limit. Okay, there is no maximum limit on national emergency, on imposition of national emergency. This is very, very important. Okay, this is very, very important. Now, okay, now we have discussed life of life of national emergency. So we have to also discuss revocation of national emergency. We have to also discuss revocation of national emergency. Okay, see here, national emergency is revocated by president. Okay, national emergency is revocated by a person called as, by an authority called as president. Why president is the one who is revoking national emergency? Because president is the one who is proclaiming this emergency. So that's why president is the authority who can take back this proclamation. Okay, so that's why president is the authority who can revoke this national emergency. Now see here, there are two authorities who can advise president for revocation of national emergency. Okay, and ordinarily president, he will revoke this national emergency just by in advice of prime minister plus council of minister. But there was an additional safeguard introduced by 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. So by that safeguard, there are two authorities who can recommend president to revoke national emergencies. Now those two authorities are executive and legislature. Executive and legislature. So in case of executive, what are we talking about? Prime minister plus council of minister. On the they will give aid and advice. They will give aid and advice to president of India to revoke this national emergency. Now in case of legislature, what happens is that in case of legislature, okay, a special session, okay, a special session of Lok Sabha, okay, people will call, MPs will call for special session of Lok Sabha. Now if this special session of Lok Sabha passes a resolution by means of simple majority, okay, now this resolution will be sent to President of India, advising President of India to revoke national emergency. Okay, so is it clear, everyone? Revocation of national emergency, president is the authority who can revoke national emergency. Why? Because he is the authority who imposed national emergency in the first place. So that's why he is the one who has authority to revoke national emergency. Now there are two authorities who can recommend president to revoke this national emergency. The first one is executive. Means prime minister plus council of ministers, and then the next one is by means of legislature. In legislature, if a special session of Lok Sabha passes a resolution, okay, by means of simple majority, that resolution will recommend president to revoke national emergency. Okay, so this is how revocation operates. So far, if you have any doubts so far, please people ask your doubts. Okay, next we will discuss the impact of national emergency. So before going on to the impact, we have to I should know whether you have understood anything, everything or not. So please ask your doubts in the live chat session. Okay, please ask your doubts in the live chat section so that I can answer your doubts. So I will give you 1 to 2 minutes to ask your doubts. After that, we will move on to the next part. Okay, everyone. Since no one is asking any doubts, I think everyone has understood everything. Okay, so we'll move on to the next part. Okay, so before analyzing the impact of national emergency, we will discuss the difference between proclamation and revocation. We will discuss the difference between proclamation of national emergency and a revocation of national emergency. Okay, so here in case of proclamation is revocated by means of just a written recommendation, a written recommendation of cabinet. Okay, the for proclamation of national emergency, written recommendation of cabinet is required, but for revocation, aid and advice of prime minister plus council of minister is enough. Okay, now the next one is that in case of proclamation, this proclamation has to be approved by, it has to be passed by, has to be ratified by means of special majority, both by Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha, But in case of revocation, it can be done only by means of having simple majority, only by Lok Sabha. Okay, so these are the differences between proclamation of national emergency and revocation of national emergency. Now let's take a look at the impact of national emergency. See here, we have discussed the patent right. In the first itself, we have discussed the patent right. Here, this is the pattern that we are going to discuss for all emergency. When this national emergency will be imposed, who will impose this national emergency, and what is the procedure for parliament ratification, and what is the life of emergency, and what is the procedure for ratification. So far for national emergency, we have discussed all these things. Now we have to discuss what is the impact of national emergency. Okay, now see here. Now this impact of national emergency, Okay, this impact of national emergency, it is given in 4 articles. Okay, it is given in Article 353, Article 353, Article 354, Article 358, and Article 360. Okay, so not 360. Article 359. So these are the articles that discusses the impact of national emergency. Okay, see here the Article 353 discusses the impact of national emergency on both executive relationship, as well as legislative relationship. Okay, it will revocation of national emergency. Please reply, sir. Okay, see here, Karthik, it's nothing but, see here, revocation of national emergency, it will be revoked by president. Okay, since president is the one, see here, president is the one who is issuing the proclamation of national emergency, right? Who is the authority who signs this national emergency. So that's why president is the only authority who can revoke this national emergency, who can take back this national emergency. Now there are 2 authorities who can recommend. See here, president in Indian Constitution doesn't have substantial discretionary powers, right? He doesn't have any substantial discretionary powers. So that's why someone has to recommend for president for revocation of national emergency. Now ordinarily before 44th Constitution Amendment Act, on the Indian advice given by Prime Minister plus Council of Minister, President will revoke national emergency. But after 44th Constitution Amendment Act, an additional safeguard was introduced. Now based on this additional safeguard, if a special session of Lok Sabha passes a resolution by means of simple majority, this resolution will recommend President to revoke national emergency. That's what Karthik, see here, for calling this special session of Lok Sabha, okay, but for calling this special session of Lok Sabha, 1/10 of members of Lok Sabha, see here, 1/10 of members of Lok Sabha, they have to petition the speaker. They have to petition the speaker to call for a special sitting. Okay, that's why it is called as special sitting. Is it clear? 1/10 of members of Lok Sabha, they will petition speaker calling for a special session. Only then special session will be convened by speaker. Now in this special session only resolution will be passed. Okay, there are parliament, there are two types of session. Okay, normal session and then special session and then budget session. There are different types of sessions. For calling this special session, the norm for calling special session is 1/10 of members should petition speaker for calling of this special session. Is it clear, Karthik? Is it clear to you, Karthik? Is it clear to you, Karthik? Was it clear to you, Karthik? Just please reply. If you are not replying, I will move on. Okay, see here, in case of this impact of Article 353, it changes executive relationship between central government and all state governments. Okay, it will change the relationship between central government and state government. Now Article 354, it talks about the impact on financial relationship. It talks about impact on financial relationship. Now Article 358 as well as 359, they talk about the impact of fundamental rights. They talk about the impact of fundamental rights on citizens. They talk about the impact of fundamental rights on citizens. Okay, now see here, first we will discuss Article 353. Okay, first we will discuss Article 353. See, under Article 353, see here, under Article 353, okay, it has an impact on executive, right? It has an impact on executive relationship. Okay, it also has an impact on legislative relationship. Okay, see here, in case of executive relationship, central government can give direction to state government, in any matter, Okay, so ordinarily central government can give direction to state government only matters that are mentioned in Article 257 as well as Article 256. Only in these matters central government can give direction to state government. Okay, there are 4 items that are mentioned in Article 257, like maintenance of railways, maintenance of communication of national importance, preaching of mother tongue for linguistic minorities in primary school, development of tribal welfare. So in all these matters central government can give limited direction to state government. Only on these 4 matters central government can give direction. But in case during national emergency, central government can give any type of direction in any matter to state government. Is it clear? They can give direction to state government in any matter. So can we conclude? During national emergency, state government becomes subordinate. They become subordinate to central government. State government, they will function under the direction of central government. So that's why state government, they will become subordinate to central government. Okay, so that's how executive relationship changes. Okay, that's how executive relationship changes. So that's what I mentioned in the starting itself when I was discussing this topic. In emergency, our federal setup will be changed to unitary setup. Our federal setup of Indian Constitution will be changed to unitary setup. So emergency is a type of administration. Okay, so here we are talking about changing a federal setup to unitary setup. Here, now in case of legislative relationship, now during national emergency, parliament is empowered to make laws on state list. Okay, parliament is empowered to make laws on state list. So ordinarily parliament doesn't have the powers to make laws on state list, right? So but during national emergency, parliament has the power to make laws on state list. Now similarly, president can promulgate ordinances in state list. Okay, president can promulgate ordinances in state list. Now this is not mentioned in your Lakshmikant book, okay, but this is very, very important. Okay, president can promulgate ordinances in state list. Okay, this ordinance part is not mentioned in your Lakshmikant book. This is very important. President can promulgate ordinances in state list also. And importantly, okay, this is the third provision. So we have discussed first provision, second provision, and we have to discuss third provision, right? Here, according to this third provision in Article 353, the tenure of Lok Sabha can be extended. Okay, see here, I'll give you an example why this provision is there. See here, if this is the life of Lok Sabha, this is the life of Lok Sabha, this is for 5 years. Okay, now national emergency was imposed at the end of Lok Sabha. Okay, it was imposed at 4.5 years. Okay, so during national emergency there is no situation. Okay, Jammu and Kashmir, Rajasthan, Punjab, all these states are fighting war. Okay, since there is a war going on in India, do you think elections can be conducted in India for all these states? Do you think elections can be conducted? It is not possible to conduct elections, right? So that's why the tenure of Lok Sabha can be extended by 1 year. The tenure of Lok Sabha can be extended for 1 year by parliamentary law. It can be extended by 1 year by parliamentary law. Not Sivajani, it's not for 6 months, Sivajani. Only if the life of national emergency is 6 months. Okay, only the life of national emergency is 6 months, but for extension of Lok Sabha tenure, it is for 1 year. Okay, now if parliament wants to extend the Lok Sabha tenure for another 1 year, they have to pass another parliamentary law. Okay, so by means of passing parliamentary law, the Lok Sabha tenure can be extended by 1 year terms, and it can be extended for infinite times. Okay, can be extended for infinite times, but after the ending of Lok Sabha, after the ending of national emergency, once national emergency has been revoked, the parliament will be dissolved after 6 months. Okay, the parliament will be dissolved after 6 months. Is it clear, everyone? Once national emergency has been revoked, the parliament will be dissolved after 6 months. Okay, now the same provision, the tenure of Lok Sabha is extended, right? Why? Because election was not able to be conducted in certain states like Punjab and Rajasthan. Similarly, do you think state legislative assembly elections can be conducted? No, right? So similarly, state legislative assembly tenure can also be extended. Okay, this is very, very important. Not many people is aware of that. Similar to Lok Sabha, state legislative assembly tenure also can be extended by means of parliamentary law. This is very, very important. Only by means of passing a parliamentary law, the tenure can be extended. Okay, so we have discussed Article 353, the impact of Article 353 on executive relationship and legislative relationship. Now we will discuss, okay, now we will discuss the impact of Article 354. Okay, Article 354. See here, this Article 354, it will affect the distribution of financial resources between central government and state government. Okay, now these are given in Article 268 to Article 279. See, financial relationship in India is discussed in our constitution from Article 268 to Article 279. So the distribution of this financial relationship will be modified. The distribution of this financial relationship will be modified. So ordinarily what happens is that, see, according to 14th Finance Commission, what is happening? 42% of central taxation tax resources is given to state government, right? So but in these war circumstances, during national emergency circumstances, there is certain expenditure that is to be met by central government. Central government, they will spend more towards war expenditure, right? So they will not be able to give their financial resources to state government. So what, during national emergency, the distribution of financial resources between state government and central government, it will be modified. Okay, it will be modified by means of presidential order. It will be modified by means of presidential order. Now this presidential order will be tabled in the parliament. Okay, it will be tabled in the parliament. Okay, so along with, what happens is that along with proclamation of national emergency, proclamation of national emergency is what? It's a document. A supplementary document will be attached. Okay, a supplementary presidential order will be attached, modifying a financial relationship. So that's what happens in this presidential order of under Article 354. This presidential order, it can be modified by President of India, and it will modify the distribution of financial resources between central government and state government. Now this modified financial relationship will apply until the end of financial year. It will apply until the end of financial year once national emergencies revoked. Once the national emergencies revoked. Okay, so that's what happens in Article 354. So have you understood, people? Have you understood everything? Please mention in the live chat section. Okay, if you have understood the concept that I have taught today, please mention in the live chat section so that I can move on to the next part. Next part we will discuss is how national emergency affects fundamental rights. Okay, next we will discuss how national emergency affects fundamental rights. So please tell me you have understood something. If you have any doubts so far. Okay, what do you want me to explain, Sivajani? What do you want me to explain? Which concept do you want me to explain again? Okay, modification. See here, Sivajani, see here, during wartime, we have to purchase a lot of equipments, right? We have to purchase a lot of equipments, and these items are not cheap. We have to spend lakhs, thousands of crores for purchasing this equipment. Okay, so that's why central government will need a lot of financial resources. Central government will need a lot of financial resources. But during ordinary times, the central government, okay, if central government is collecting 100 rupees, if central government is collecting 100 rupees, it has to give 42 rupees to state government. This is the division of financial resources during ordinary times. If central government is collecting 100 rupees, it has to give 42 rupees to state government according to 14th Finance Commission recommendation. But during national emergency, central government will incur additional expenses. They will incur additional expenses. So to meet these additional expenses, they will try to change the distribution of financial resources between central government and state government. They will change the nature of distribution of financial resources between central government and state government. So for this purpose, a presidential order will be issued. For this purpose, presidential order will be issued. Now this presidential order will modify. They will modify the relationship. It will modify the financial relationship between central government and state government. So instead of giving 42 rupees, they will give only 10 rupees to state government. According to this modified, according to this presidential order, the relationship is changed. So accordingly, only 10% of central tax resources will be given to state government. Now this modified financial relationship, it will apply until the end of financial year once the national emergency is revoked. Of course, Sivajani, the 42% will be reduced. The 42% will be reduced, or it can be the entire central taxation will be taken up by central government. Okay, so it's up to president to decide how much amount of money should be given to state government. So that's what I said. In emergency, what happens? Ordinarily, our constitution is ordinarily our constitution is set up as a federal constitution. Okay, ordinarily our constitution is set up as a federal constitution, but during emergency circumstances, this federal constitution will change to unitary setup. It will change into a unitary setup. That's what happens in emergency. Okay, so see, that's what we have discussed now. In case of a national emergency, see here, even in executive relationship, the federal setup is getting changed to unitary setup. Legislative relation, even here the federal setup is getting changed to unitary setup. Even in financial relations, the federal setup is getting changed to unitary setup. Now we have discussed the impact of national emergency from executive perspective, legislative perspective and financial perspective. Now we will discuss the impact of national emergency from the impact of fundamental rights. Okay, see here, the impact of fundamental rights is discussed in two articles. One is Article 358 and another one is Article 359. The impact of national emergency on fundamental rights is discussed in two articles. One is Article 358, another one is Article 359. See, according to Article 358, it suspends Article 19 entirely. It suspends Article 19 entirely. Okay, so Article 19 will not be enjoyed by the people of India. Article 19 will be suspended entirely. Okay, but if you look at Article 359, it suspends the enforcement of fundamental rights except Article 20 and Article 21. Now, what is the difference between suspending this article entirely and suspending the enforcement of this fundamental rights? See, in this case, the fundamental rights, it cannot be enjoyed by the citizens of India. It cannot be enjoyed by citizens of India. But in case of Article 359, all the other fundamental rights, they will be enjoyed by citizens of India. But if their fundamental rights are being violated, they cannot approach the court. Is it clear? Citizens under Article 359, they will enjoy fundamental rights, but if their fundamental rights are being violated, they cannot approach Supreme Court or High Court. So what is happening here? In case of Article 359, they will suspend Article 32 alone. Okay, Article 32 alone. So what is Article 32? It is writ jurisdiction. Writ jurisdiction is the one which enforces fundamental rights. Writ jurisdiction gives power to people of India to approach either High Court or Supreme Court. Okay, so it will suspend Article 32 and Article 226 except Article 20 and 21. Okay, is it here? Except Article 20 and 21. So that's what happens in Article 359. See here. Now, in case of Article 358, it comes in automatically. It comes in automatically. So the moment President is signing his signature in proclamation of national emergency, the moment President is giving his signature, Article 19 will be suspended. Article 19 will be suspended automatically. Okay, but in case of Article 359, it is not imposed automatically. It is not imposed automatically. Okay, it has to be imposed. It has to be imposed by a separate presidential order. It has to be imposed by a separate presidential order. It has to be imposed by a separate presidential order. So normally what happens is that when proclamation of national emergency is sent to parliament, what will happen? Behind this presidential order, they will have supplementary presidential order. Okay, proclamation of national emergency is a document. So with this document, supplementary presidential orders will be sent to the parliament. Okay, now this presidential order, it will modify the financial relationship. It will suspend other fundamental rights. Okay, so ordinarily seven to eight documents will be 7 to 8 attached documents will be sent along with proclamation of national emergency. Okay, now this presidential order, it will be tabled in parliament. It will be tabled in parliament. Okay, now this presidential order has to be approved. It has to be approved by both the houses of the parliament. It has to be approved by both the houses of the parliament. Okay, it has to be approved by both the houses of the parliament. And then the next difference is that Article 358 follows a principle called as principle of entirety. It follows a principle called as principle of entirety. Now, according to this principle of entirety, once national emergency has been imposed, okay, national emergency, as I mentioned at the beginning itself, it can be imposed to entire India or some parts of India. Now, even though national emergency is imposed in some parts of India, okay, even if national emergency is imposed only in some parts of India, it applies to, okay, Article 19 is suspended for entire India. It is suspended for entire India. Okay, and it is also suspended for entire duration of national emergency. It is also suspended for entire duration of national emergency. Okay, it is suspended for entire duration of national emergency, and it also suspended for entire India. Okay, now, but in case of Article 359, as I mentioned before, a separate presidential order has to be issued. A separate presidential order has to be issued for a suspension of these rights. Now, in this presidential order, President can modify, President can say which fundamental rights are suspended, and he can also prescribe what is the period of suspension of these articles, and he can also specify in what area these articles are being suspended. Okay, so that's the difference between these two articles. Clear? In case of Article 358, it follows the principle of entirety, so it is suspended for entirety of India and for the entire duration of national emergency. But in case of Article 359, a presidential order can prescribe which fundamental rights are suspended, for which period they are suspended, and for which area it is suspended. Okay, so based on these provisions can be clear. Now the next difference is that, see, the next difference is that Article 358 can be imposed only during, can be suspended only during external emergency. It can be suspended only during external emergency. But in case of Article 359, it can be suspended both during external as well as internal emergency. It can be suspended both during external as well as internal emergency. Now, can we conclude that? Now, based on these two principles, now can we say that Article 358 cannot be regulated, but in case of Article 359, it can be regulated by presidential order. Is it clear? And what is the meaning of cannot be regulated? As soon as president signs a proclamation, it will be suspended. It cannot be regulated. We cannot change the time. We cannot change which area it is being applied to. So it cannot be regulated. Once president is giving his signature, it applies to entirety of India for entire duration of national emergency. But in case of Article 359, president, he can modify in which area it applies, for which period it is suspended, and which of the fundamental rights is suspended. Okay. So this is the difference between Article 358 and Article 359, everyone. So, okay. So if you have any doubts so far, please ask in the chat section, and I will try to answer those. See, as I mentioned before, see here. See here, Sivajani, see here, as I mentioned before, there are three grounds. Okay, there are three grounds based on which president can proclaim national emergency. The first ground is war, the next one is external aggression, and the third one is armed rebellion. Okay, now the first two instances, that is the first one, war as well as external aggression, they will be called as external emergency, and armed rebellion, it will be called as internal emergency. Is it clear, Sivajani? Is it clear to you, Sivajani? Okay, people, if you have any doubts so far, please ask right now. Okay. Okay. Now we have discussed all the provisions under national emergency. We have discussed all the provisions under national emergency, but we have to discuss one important thing. Okay, see here, national emergency. Okay, national emergency. The entire character, national emergency, the entire character was changed during 44th Constitution Amendment Act. Okay, the entire character was changed during 44th Constitution Amendment Act. Now we have to discuss how, in what areas 44th Constitution Amendment Act has changed the Constitution. Okay. Now in before 44th Constitution Amendment Act, Constitution Amendment Act, president can impose national emergency. Okay, president can impose national emergency on grounds. Now the grounds mentioned are war, external aggression, and then internal disturbance. See here, internal disturbance, it is very vague, right? This concept called as internal disturbance, it is a very vague concept. Even a small skirmish in Anna Nagar in Chennai can be termed as internal disturbance, or even a small Maoist attack in Chhattisgarh can be termed as internal disturbance. So there is no clear definition for internal disturbance. So that's why the definition of this internal disturbance was changed to armed rebellion. It was changed to armed rebellion in 44th Constitution Amendment Act. Okay. See here, during 1975, when Indira Gandhi imposed emergency based on internal disturbance, okay, whatever it was, the provisions. Of course, I am from Tamil Nadu, Sivajani. Okay, I'm from Coimbatore. See here, whatever provision was touched by, whatever provision was abused by Indira Gandhi, everything was changed by 44th Constitution Amendment Act. Is it clear? Indira Gandhi grossly abused the provisions mentioned in national emergency. So every provision that was abused by Indira Gandhi, abused or misused by Indira Gandhi, it was amended by 44th Constitution Amendment Act. Now the next one is President. Before 44th Constitution Amendment Act, President, he can proclaim national emergency just on the aid and advice given by Prime Minister plus Council of Minister. Now this was changed to written recommendation from Cabinet. It was changed to written recommendation of Cabinet. Okay. Now before yes, of course, till now 3 times emergency, national emergency have been imposed. Now before 44th Constitution Amendment Act, Parliament, okay, Parliament, if they want to ratify, the ratification process was to be done within 2 months. The ratification process has to be done within 2 months, and the ratification process was just simple majority. It was simple majority. Okay, and after this national emergency was approved, and the time period was, okay, the time period was as long as President revokes. Okay, as long as President revokes this national emergency will continue. But this was changed in 44th Constitution Amendment Act to include ratification has to be done within 1 month, plus special majority is required for ratification, and then national emergency can be imposed only for 6 months. National emergency can be imposed only for 6 months, and if we want to continue beyond 6 months, subsequent Parliament ratification is necessary. Okay. Now before, okay, in case of revocation, only President can revoke national emergency. But in case of after 44th Constitution Amendment Act, a special sitting of Lok Sabha can revoke national emergency. Okay. Now before 44th Constitution Amendment Act, Article 358, it applied both during internal emergency as well as external emergency. It automatically got suspended both during internal emergency as well as external emergency. But after 44th Constitution Amendment Act, Article 358 is suspended only during external emergency. Now President will revoke national emergency on the advice given by Prime Minister plus Council of Ministers, Sivajani. On the advice of Prime Minister plus Council of Ministers, not on the written recommendation of Cabinet. Only for proclamation of national emergency, he will proclaim on the written recommendation of Cabinet. Okay, I believe you have joined my class in between. That's why you didn't. I explained these concepts in the earlier part itself. I've started this class from 6 o'clock itself. Okay, in the beginning part of my class itself, I explained what is the difference between written recommendation from Cabinet and aid and advice of Council of Ministers. Okay, now before 44th Constitution Amendment Act, Article 315, based on Article 315, Article 20 as well as Article 21 was not exempted. Okay, it was not exempted. So anyone can be shot down by police. Anyone can be shot down by government, and you cannot claim right to life and liberty in court. Okay, police can kill anyone, and Article 21 will not be applicable to persons. So, but after 44th Constitution Amendment Act, it was changed. Okay, Article 21 and Article 20 was exempted from suspension. from suspension. Okay, and before Constitution Amendment Act, it was not the proclamation. Clear? The proclamation was not subject to judicial review. Was not subject to judicial review. But after 44th Constitution Amendment Act, the proclamation was subject to judicial review. Okay. So any provision that was abused by Indira Gandhi at the time, they changed during 44th Constitution Amendment Act. Okay. So national emergency we have finished, people. National emergency we have finished. Okay. So if you have any doubts so far, please ask in the chat section and I will try to answer those. Now next we will look at concept called as constitutional emergency or president's rule. Okay. Next we will discuss a concept called as president's rule. Now Karthik, if she is having any doubts, she can ask those doubts. Okay. Now what I can do is that I will try to clarify your doubts after I finished explaining one concept. Okay. After that I can maybe explain that concept, but she has the right to ask her doubts. Okay. You cannot interfere in the Karthik. Sorry for that. Now what I can do is that after finishing a complete concept, I will try to answer those doubts. Hereafter I can do that. Okay. No, of course not, Sivajani. You are not disturbing the class. You are asking your legitimate doubts. Okay, it's not disturbing. Okay, what I can do is that after explaining the concept fully, I will try to clear those doubts. Hereafter, I will do that. Okay, so I can come at a compromise between you two guys. Okay, so after explaining a concept fully, I will try to answer those doubts. Now let's move on to the next emergency. Okay, next emergency is Article 356. Now everything is clear, right? Everything is clear for this topic, right? Okay, now can I move on to the next emergency? See here, the next emergency that we will be discussing today is Article 356. Article 356, it will be called as, it will be popularly called as President's Rule. It will be popularly called as President's Rule or Constitutional Emergency or State Emergency. State Emergency. See here, Article 356 will be imposed by two articles. Okay, Article 356 will be invoked by two articles. It will be invoked by two articles. One is Article 355 and another one is Article 365. So okay, these two articles will invoke Article 356. Okay. Now, according to we will discuss what is this Article 355 as well as Article 365. See, according to Article 355. Article 355 it prescribes duty of central government. It gives some duty to central government. Okay, it will give a duty to central government. Okay, now what is the duty that is given to central government? Now that duty is the first duty is to protect Now, Ravichan, good evening, Ravichan. To protect states from external aggression, and internal disturbance The next one is to ensure state government is administered to ensure state government is administered by constitutional provision, by constitutional provision. So central government has to ensure these two things. See here, that's a sovereign power, right? That's a sovereign power of central government. Central government, first and foremost, they have to guarantee that state government is protected from external aggression and they are being governed by means of constitutional provision. Now take the example of Tamil Nadu. Take the example of Panchayat elections. Now in 2017 and all, Panchayat elections according to constitution, it has to be conducted within 6 months. But Tamil Nadu postponed the conduction of Panchayat elections for almost 3 years. So Tamil Nadu was not following constitutional provisions. Now if this provision is not there, what will happen? Tamil Nadu, they will follow Sri Lankan constitution. Okay, so to prevent that from happening, whenever state government is not following constitutional provisions, or whenever a state is facing disturbance from other countries, or they are facing internal disturbance, central government can impose president rule. Okay, whenever these two things are happening, whenever central government is failing to ensure these two things, central government will impose president's rule. Okay, now similarly, article 365 says that central government can give direction to state government, Now these directions are given both under article 257 as well as article 256. Okay, these directions, what are the directions that can be given by central government to state government? These directions are given in article 257 as well as article 256. Now I have discussed these two articles in center-state relations. Okay, now if you wish to know about these two articles, please refer to my center-state relations class. Now if state government is not following this direction, given under article 365, okay, president rule can be imposed. Okay, so that's how president rule, constitutional emergency as well as state emergency is imposed. Okay, so that's a when part. When is this article 356 invoked by President of India? This is the circumstances during which president will impose national emergency. Okay. Now we have to consider that when our constitution makers were discussing this, okay, when constitution makers were introducing this article, they discussed that they said that this article should be invoked only when there is a failure in constitutional machinery, constitutional machinery in the state. Okay, when constitution was not being followed in the state, only then this provision was used. But during 1970s, during the period of 1970 to 1990, this emergency was imposed almost 100 times. Okay, till now state emergency has been imposed 120 times. Now between the period of 1970 to 1990, this state emergency was imposed almost 100 times. Okay, now because of that, Sarkaria Commission opined that rather than imposing national emergency during failure of constitutional machinery, most of the times this emergency was imposed when there is an administrative failure. For example, there is a protest that is going on in Kerala. Okay, there is a protest going on in Kerala, and police of Kerala is unable to control this protest. Now that is an administrative failure. Now most of the time during 1970 to 1990, this state emergency or president rule, it was imposed because of failure of administrative failure. For example, in Tamil Nadu, there was a lot of corruption that was going on in Tamil Nadu government. Now it is an administrative failure, it is not a constitutional failure. Now because of that, most of the time president rule was imposed in between this period. Okay, so that why Sarkaria Commission opined that most of the time this provision was being misused during administrative failure. See here, when the constitution was being formulated, Ambedkar said that Ambedkar said that this provision should be used as a dead letter. This provision will be considered as a dead letter. What is the meaning of dead letter? This should not be used sparingly. Ambedkar thought that this provision will not be used in any circumstances. Only during dire circumstances this provision will be used. So that's why he called this provision as dead letter. It should be used very sparingly, only in exceptional circumstances. But since there was no additional safeguards placed on president's rule, this was being abused again and again by central government. Okay. Now we have discussed this issue of when. Now we will discuss who can impose president's rule. Who can impose president rule? See here, president on the aid and advice of Prime Minister plus Council of Minister, on the aid and advice of Prime Minister plus Council of Minister, will impose Article 356. Now this Article 356, it is subjected to parliamentary approval. It is subjected to parliament approval. Okay. Now see here, the aid and advice given by Prime Minister plus Council of Minister will be given on the basis of, the report submitted by governor or otherwise. Okay, so governor will send a report to central government saying that constitution has broken down. Okay, so when that report is received by central government, they will advise president to impose Article 356, and this is very important. Otherwise, what is the meaning of otherwise? Even without the receipt of report from governor, even without receiving the report from governor, Prime Minister plus Council of Minister can advise president to impose president rule. Is it clear? Even without getting the report from governor, they can impose president's rule on state government. Okay. Now, as I mentioned before, this proclamation of president's rule is subject to parliamentary approval, right? So, what is the procedure? What is the procedure of parliamentary approval? What is the procedure of parliamentary approval? See here, this presidential order, this order will be submitted in parliament. It will be submitted in parliament in both the houses, in both Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha, and the powers of both Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha is equal. Now, parliament within 2 months, by simple majority. Now, this provision, right, within 2 months by simple majority, we have seen this provision before, right? Where this was the, see here, wait here. This was the, okay, this was the actual procedure for approval of even national emergency. This was the procedure for approval of national emergency before 44th Constitution Amendment Act. So can we conclude that the procedure of approval of emergency, all three types of emergency, that is national emergency, state emergency and financial emergency, it was the same. After the introduction of 44th Constitution Amendment Act, only national emergency approval was changed from 2 months to 1 month, and the procedure was changed from simple majority to special majority. Is it clear, everyone? That's how you have to study polity. You have to compare each individual provisions and study. You have to do a comparative analysis when you are studying polity. That's how you can remember stuff from Lakshmikant book. If you are just by hearting Lakshmikant book, you will not remember stuff. Okay, I will guarantee you that you will not remember stuff. But if you are comparatively studying different provisions that are given in Constitution, you can remember very easily. Okay. Now, within 2 months by simple majority, okay, they have to ratify state emergency. Now, similar to that, if Lok Sabha is dissolved, similar to national emergency, if Lok Sabha is dissolved during that time, okay, what will happen? Rajya Sabha has to ratify. Rajya Sabha should ratify. After Rajya Sabha ratification, it will continue for some time. after Lok Sabha is reconstituted, if after Lok Sabha has reconstituted, Lok Sabha has to ratify this emergency within 30 days. Ratify this emergency within 30 days by means of simple majority. By means of simple majority. By means of simple majority. Okay. Now let's take a look at. So is it clear, everyone? Is it clear, everyone? Is it clear? If you have any doubts, Sivaranjani, Karthik, as well as Ravichan, if you have any doubts so far, please ask in the comments live chat section, and I will try to answer those doubts. Okay. I will try to answer those doubts. Please ask your doubts, and I will try to answer those doubts. If you have understood the topics, just please mention understood or okay sir or yes sir, something like that, so that I can move on to the next part. Please people ask your doubts, or if you have no doubts, mention that. Why you people are not see here, Ravichan, when present is see, that's the doubt that you are asking, I have discussed in president class itself. When president is wait here. See here, when president's office is vacant, if president office is vacant, okay, if president office is vacant, vice president will assume in charge. If vice president office is vacant, Chief Justice of India will discharge the duties of president. Even if Chief Justice of India is vacant, senior most judge of Supreme Court will discharge the function of president. No, Sivaranjani, union territories will not come under the function, come under the emergency. Okay, see here, if you look at India's federal setup, what is federalism? Okay, there is central government, and then there is state government, Okay, so there is a between central government and state government, there is a division of power. பங்கு பிரிக்கிறாங்க. உனக்கு இந்த பவர், எனக்கு இந்த பவர் சொல்லிட்டு they are dividing power. That is called as division of power. That is called as federalism. But in case of union territory, they will come under the administrative control of central government. Central government will pass law, they will take executive decisions for the union territories. Okay, of course, that's why since union territory, they are already under the administration of central government, what will happen? There is no need for imposing emergency. Since union territories are already under the control of central government, there is no need for imposition of emergency. What is the purpose of emergency? I have discussed from the beginning itself. It changes our constitution from federal setup to unitary setup. Since union territories are already under the administrative control of central government, there is no need for imposition of emergency for union territories. Okay, is it clear, Sivajani? Okay, see the life of national system, life of state emergencies. Once it is ratified by second house, the life of state emergencies for 6 months. Life of state emergencies for 6 months. Okay, so in the 6 months, central government, they will try to implement constitutional provisions. Now, if they are unable to implement these constitutional provisions, what will happen? They will extend. Central government will ask the permission of Parliament. They will ask the permission of Parliament ratification to extend the state emergency for another 6 months and another 6 months. Okay, it can be extended for another 6 months. Now, unlike national emergency, it can be extended up to a maximum period of 3 years. It can be extended only up to a maximum period of 3 years. Unlike national emergency, state emergency can be imposed up to a maximum period of 3 years. Okay. Now, 44th Constitution Amendment Act, here 44th Constitution Amendment Act introduces safeguard. 44th Constitution Amendment Act introduces safeguard which said that if Parliament were to ratify national emergency beyond 1 year, if Parliament were to ratify state emergency beyond 1 year, okay, they have to ensure two principles. They have to ensure two principles that are being followed. They should follow two conditions. They should follow two conditions. Okay, now those two conditions are if national state emergency, if president rule is to be extended beyond a period of 1 year, national emergency should be in operation. Emergency should be in operation, and then Election Commission of India must certify that elections cannot be conducted. Is it clear? So only when these two conditions are met, Parliament can approve the extension of state emergency beyond the period of 1 year. Okay, this safeguard was introduced by 44th Constitution Amendment Act. Is it clear, everyone? This is the life of national emergency. Okay, this is the life of not national emergency. This is the life of President's rule. Okay, President rule will continue for 6 months. So for subsequent period of 6 months, Parliament ratification is necessary, and it can continue for a maximum period of 3 years. Okay. Now 44th Constitution Amendment Act introduces safeguard. Now according to this safeguard, if this emergency is to be extended beyond 1 year, two conditions should be followed. Northeast national emergency should be implemented during that time, and next one is Election Commission should certify that election cannot be take place in that state. Now there won't be any impact on fundamental rights during state emergency. There won't be impact on fundamental rights during state emergency. Okay. Now we have discussed everything. Okay, now we will discuss the impact of Article 350. We will discuss the impact of Article 356. What happens during the impact of Article 356? Okay, so the impact of Article 356, it is given in Article is given in both in Article 356 as well as Article 357. Okay, it is given in Article 356 as well as Article 357. So we will discuss what this article prescribes the changes in executive. What is the changes that are prescribed in executive relationship? What is the changes that are prescribed in legislative relationship? And what happens on High Court? What happens in High Court? So these are the things that we will discuss now. Okay. See here, in case of executive relationship, how executive relationship is changed during state emergency. See here, now during state emergency, all executive power of state government, okay, all executive power of state government, okay, all executive power of state government exercised by whom? that is the power of governor, that is power of governor, it will be assumed by President of India. It will be assumed by President of India. Okay, all the executive power of state government as well as the power of governor, it will be assumed by President of India. Okay, so now in case of executive relationship, what is the sole purpose of, see here, according to Article 75 as well as Article 161, all executive power in central government as well as state government, they will be exercised in the name of President as well as governor. Okay, governor, president, they are the person who is responsible for exercising executive relationship. Then what is the job of council of ministers in both in central government and state government? Council of minister job is only to aid and advise governor. The job of council of minister is to give aid and advice to governor. Since there is no governor itself, there is no executive power itself with governor. Since there is no executive power with governor itself, chief minister plus council of minister will be dismissed. They will be dismissed. Chief minister plus council of minister will be dismissed during state emergency. They will be dismissed. So for example, if state emergency is imposed on the state of Tamil Nadu, the current Edappadi government, they will be dismissed. Okay, they will be dismissed. Now we will look at the impact on legislature. We will look at the impact of state emergency on legislature. Okay, so when Article 356 is imposed, okay, president can either dissolve state legislative assembly. He can either dissolve state legislative assembly, or he can suspend state legislative assembly. Okay, he can either dissolve state legislative assembly or he can suspend state legislative assembly. Now you have to understand when he will dissolve state legislative assembly or when he will suspend state legislative assembly. See here, I will give you two scenarios. See here, president right now has imposed president's rule both in Tamil Nadu as well as Kerala. He has imposed president's rule in both Tamil Nadu as well as Kerala. Now if you look at Tamil Nadu government, the current Tamil Nadu government is at the end of their 4-year term. Okay, they are at the end of, they have completed 4 years of their term. But if you look at Kerala, they have just completed 1-year term. So in case of Tamil Nadu, president will dissolve the state legislative assembly. But in case of Kerala, president will only suspend state legislative assembly. So based on the tenure of the respective state legislative assembly, he will either dissolve or suspend state legislative assembly. Can you understand? Based on the tenure of the respective state government, he will either dissolve state legislative assembly or suspend state legislative assembly. Is it clear, everyone? Did you understand everything so far? Everyone? Okay, everyone. See here. Now, see here, in both these instances, right, even in legislative relations, in both these instances, even in case of suspension, even in case of dissolution, or state legislative assembly is not functioning. State legislature, it is not functioning. It cannot pass any bills or it cannot pass any resolution. So since state legislature cannot pass any bills or resolution, what will happen? President, he will delegate the power of state legislative assembly to parliament. Okay, now parliament, they can, after getting this power, they can pass law on state list. They will pass budget for state government, and then they will authorize the withdrawal of money from consolidated fund of state. Okay. So that's it everyone. That's it everyone. That's it with everyone with regards to Parliament President's rule. Okay, so if you have any doubts so far, please ask now. Okay, next we will look at financial emergency. There is another provision which is very advanced for you, and I don't think it is necessary for UPSC students. I don't think UPSC will ask questions from that much amount of depth. Okay, I'm not explaining that concept. I don't want to confuse you guys. I don't want to confuse you. Okay, I don't want to confuse you. Okay, so I'm not explaining that concept. Just remember that Parliament can delegate the power of State Legislative Assembly to, President can delegate the power of State Legislative Assembly to Parliament, and Parliament, after getting this power, they can pass law on state list. They can pass law on state list. They can pass budget for state government. They can also authorize withdrawal of money from consolidated fund of state. Okay. Now, next concept we will discuss is next we will discuss financial emergency. Financial emergency. Now, see here, there are a number of things that are given in Lakshmikant book. Like, for example, see here, in SR Bommai versus Union of India, okay, Supreme Court has prescribed conditions. Supreme Court has prescribed certain conditions for imposition of President's rule. Okay, those conditions you can learn from Lakshmikant book. I am not going to explain that. It will take so much amount of time if I want to explain all these concepts individually. So just read these conditions. Okay, prescribed by which is given in a Lakshmikant book. What are these conditions for imposition of state emergency? Okay. Now we will discuss financial emergencies here. Financial emergency, it will be imposed by, again, President of India. Okay, Article 360, it will be invoked by President of India, again on the aid and advice given by, of Prime Minister plus Council of Minister. Okay, on the aid and advice of Prime Minister plus Council of Minister. Now, this proclamation, this presidential order, it has to be submitted in Parliament. It is very similar to other parliamentary approval, right? It is very similar to parliamentary approval. In Parliament, it is submitted both in Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha. Okay, so it has to be ratified both by Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha within 2 months. By means of simple majority. Okay. Now, once this provision is ratified, the life of this financial emergency is as long as President revokes this. Financial emergency. As long as President revokes this emergency, it will continue. Now, importantly, no frequent ratification is required. For financial emergency. In case of state emergency and national emergency, frequent ratification by Parliament is required, right? But in case of financial emergency, there is no need for frequent ratification. So, as long as President revokes this emergency, it will continue in operation. Okay. Now, in case of revocation, who will revoke this financial emergency? Again, similar to the previous emergency, President will revoke. President is the one who can revoke this financial emergency, again on the aid and advice of Prime Minister plus Council of Minister. Yeah, on the aid and advice of Prime Minister plus Council of Minister. Now we will look at lastly, this is the last concept that we are going to look today. Now we will look at what is the impact of financial emergency. We will look at the impact of financial Okay, impact of financial emergency. See here. See, if financial emergency is invoked, if financial emergency is invoked, a certain power is given to presidents. A certain power is given to president, and also a certain power is given to central government. A certain power is given to central government. Okay. Now, what are the powers that are given to president? What are the powers that are given to a president? President can reduce the salary of. He can reduce the salary and allowances of civil servants at central level. At central government. Okay, so for example, in this COVID pandemic situation, government is facing a lot of financial difficulties. Citing these financial difficulties, president can impose financial emergency. Now, during this imposition of financial emergency, president unilaterally can uh, reduce the salary and allowances of various central government employees. Now, importantly, even Supreme Court and High Court judges salary can be reduced. Salary can be reduced. Okay, even Supreme Court and High Court judges salary can be reduced. Now, what is the power that is given to central government? See here, under financial emergency, during financial emergency, central government can give direction to state government. Now, what kind of direction can be given? This direction can be in any financial matter. This direction can be in any financial matter. Now, what are those financial matters? The one is, okay, central government will prescribe the financial principles. The financial principles to be followed by state government. Okay, the central government will prescribe the financial principles that is to be followed by state government. So, for example, if financial emergency is in place, take the example of Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is known for its free schemes. Okay, so during this period, central government will advise Tamil Nadu saying that don't give this color TV, don't give free scooty to women, don't give free electricity to agriculture people, agricultural lands, all these things. Okay, financial principles. So the the principle of taking money from consolidated fund of state, it will be governed by central government. Central government will lay certain conditions. These conditions has to be followed by state government. Okay. The next one is that central government can direct state government to reserve any money bill or financial bill for consideration of president. So, central government can direct state government to reserve any money bill or financial bill for the consideration of president, and also central government can direct state government. Okay, so based on which governor can reduce the salary and allowances of state government employees. So this is the impact during financial emergency. Okay, this is the impact during financial emergency. Okay, so that's it, everyone. Emergency topic has been finished. Okay, so if you have any doubts so far, please ask in the live chat session. After that, I will end this session. If you have any doubts so far, please ask in the live chat section and I will try to answer those. If you are not asking doubts, I will end this live chat section. Now, please, people who ask your doubts. If you're not asking doubts, I will end this session. Okay. If you have understood everything, or if you have any, if you want to repeat any topic, and I will repeat those topics, please ask in the chat section. Okay. Okay, everyone. Since no one is asking any doubts, I think I've everyone is understood the concepts perfectly. Okay, so I will end this session. Okay, everyone, have a wonderful day. Meet you tomorrow on next session. Okay, tomorrow I'm not sure about the timing of tomorrow's class. Nonetheless, I will take tomorrow's class. I will have a tomorrow class. So goodbye, everyone. Have a wonderful day. நெக்ஸ்ட் கிளாஸ் நாளைக்கு காலையில் 11 மணிக்கு இருக்குமா? நாளைக்கு காலையில் 11 மணிக்கு. டுமாரோ அட் 11 o'clock I will have another class. Tomorrow at 11 at tomorrow 11 at I will have another class. Okay, tomorrow at 11 o'clock I will have another class. Okay, so please attend that class also. So goodbye everyone. Have a wonderful day. Okay, I will end this stream.